So, greetings of light, everyone. It's wonderful to be with all of you. It's a real delight, especially given the topic we're looking at. Firstly, thank you to Vani and Vasu for inviting me to be here with you. It's a real treat in so many ways. I remember very much the in-person gatherings, and those were incredibly enjoyable, and I think this will be enjoyable in a different way. We have perhaps people from outside of Bangalore as well joining, so that's great. That's great. So let's jump right into it. Radiant Awakening. As I was looking at the title of the talk for today, and I was looking at the what would be the acronym for Radiant Awakening, and the acronym would be RA. And some of you might recognize right away that RA is Ra, and Ra in the Egyptian mythology is the sun, or the sun god. And isn't that very appropriate, given that we're talking about light? So that's a happy coincidence, really, that it turns out Radiant Awakening is Ra. Let's take a look at what Ra is all about, what light is all about. So, some of you who've heard me talk before, you know that light is very dear to me for many reasons. And what is this light we're talking about? The light, firstly, that we are referring to here is transcendental light. It's not the ordinary physical light, but it's transcendental light. And you could think of transcendental light as cosmic light, or you could think of it as a super high vibration within creation. And so this light is very special, especially for those of us who are seeking higher truths. Because what happens is when you, just like ordinary light, what happens when you switch on the lights? When you switch on the lights in the room, you can see what's there. Similarly, when you switch on the transcendental light, you can see transcendental truths. So for those of us who are very keen on higher consciousness, spirituality, enlightenment, all these are transcendental truths in that they may not be immediately obvious, but when you switch on the transcendental light, then they are right there. So this transcendental or light or cosmic light, and I'm simply going to, with a capital L, and we from here on, it is understood that I'm talking about this transcendental light. This light brings with it many blessings and tremendous power. So for those of us who feel this resonance, and those of us who feel this attraction to light, we will find that light can be tremendously beneficial for us in turning the spiritual journey from something that might appear to be really difficult, really much of a struggle, to something that is much, much more enjoyable, graceful, elegant. These kinds of adjectives come to mind. So it turns it into something quite beautiful. And so given all that sort of preliminary information about light, let us set an intention right here in the beginning so that this talk and this time we have together is not just some interesting philosophical discussion about light, because who cares about that? I think we're all here for something more interesting than just understanding light and just gathering information about light. Wouldn't we rather actually taste light, imbibe light, drink light, and transform and transmute so that we are left elevated, uplifted, brought to a place where we are now perceiving essence? Wouldn't that be a whole lot more interesting than just sitting around and talking about light? So let's set that intention. Instead of just leaving it to chance, let us take a moment to directly call upon light right now so that light is infusing this precious time we have together, so that light is actually flooding our being from inside. And that light is drawing us, bringing us to awakening, the realization that all of us are truly wanting. So let us set that intention, because with the very setting of that intention, things change. Things change. And so even as we are here listening, interacting, let us constantly remember that what's really going on is that we are directly connecting with light, we're directly engaging with light, and we're directly drawing that light into our being. And that's really what's going on. So let us always keep that at the forefront. And whatever I'm saying can be something in the background. Okay. So if you like, you could take a few seconds to close your eyes and invite light. And a little bit later, we will also have a guided meditation on light, so we can go even deeper. Okay. So we started talking about what is this light and why it's important for anybody who is looking to awaken. Because if you think about what is awakening, what is this awakening? If you think about it, awakening is about seeing truth, right? Awakening is about seeing truth, perceiving truth, realizing truth. And to see truth, light can make a dramatic difference. So when this cosmic light is switched on within our being, then we see truth, we perceive truth, we realize truth, and guess what? We are now awake. And we are awake through the blessings of light. In other words, what I call a radiant awakening has just happened within us, through us, in us. So awakening is intimately connected to light. And even if you look at a word like enlightenment, right, you could see the word light right there, right? So enlightenment, you could see, you could say one of the definitions of enlightenment is being in the light, living in the light, to be fully consumed by the light could be called enlightenment. So this has been a recognition since centuries, if not centuries, millennia, So there's an intimate connection between light and waking up. Now, as we go along, we'll take a closer look at the journey of awakening, the journey of growth, and see how light can play a significant role in every phase of the journey. But I want to make sure that everybody understands that this is not some very complex thing. In fact, even if you don't understand most of the things I talk about, but simply understand intuitively that light is significant, light can make a difference, and light is here for all of us. Just that is the key. So don't feel like you have to understand every little thing I talk about specifically, about how it affects journey. And I also hope to have some time for Q&A. So if you have questions that pop up, keep those in mind, and hopefully we'll get a chance to address them. Now, if you think about creation is nothing but vibration, right? So the entire creation is a series, or you could say several strata of vibrations. And if you look at these many layers and layers or levels of vibration, and you look at what's the most fundamental vibration, what is that vibration from which everything else is derived? That fundamental, super high vibration is nothing but light. So light, you could say, is the super high vibration that underlies this entire reality that we see around us. So from light, you could say vibrations of energy come out of that. And as energy is further condensing, you start seeing physical matter. So really everything is vibration. And you could even say everything is light, because given that light is the fundamental vibration, everything, even matter, is frozen light. Energy is liquid light. And then pure light, you could think of it as plasma light, if you like. So all of this is nothing but light. And that's very fascinating, because if you are thinking, how can I see this amazing light? Well, I would ask you, how can you not see this amazing light? Because everything that you see around you is light in some form. So we can take a great amount of, you could say, encouragement in the fact that we are seeing light all around us all the time. But of course, as we fine-tune our consciousness, as we lift up our consciousness, we are going to perceive finer, subtler, and higher aspects of light. So this light is really pervasive. It's all around us. And as we go deeper in meditation, we naturally start perceiving light in some form. And I want to take a moment to elaborate on that, because it's but natural that when we think of light, we would think of visual light. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, because light, it suggests a visual perception. However, when it comes to transcendental light and the fact that it's fundamental, we need to realize that this light is not limited, not restricted to making itself perceivable to us only in the visual sense. Some of us might feel light. So you may or may not see it through your inner vision, but you may feel it. And that is perfectly fine. That is perfectly fine. You can feel it within your inner being. Some of us might even hear light, because what we're hearing is a non-physical vibration. So you may even pick up on light as what appears to be sound to your inner ear. So all of these may be ways to pick up on light. So I would like all of us to be wide open to all these possibilities, to however light reveals itself to us. Ourselves thinking that, oh, light should appear only in this way. Light can appear in any way. Let us be available and open and ready and receptive, so that when light does appear in any of these ways, we can take it in and allow it to do its magic, because that's really how it feels. It feels magical when you allow light to flood your being in bigger and bigger ways, because you, as a finite being, have to get out of the way for the light to come in bigger and bigger ways. So this is an important point. If we try to engage with light in a limited way, then we will see a limited aspect of light. Instead of that, if we dissolve and completely get out of the way, then the light will appear in bigger and grander ways. And we will start seeing this infinite nature of light. And the infinite nature of light, when you start seeing it and feeling it, and maybe you are seeing and feeling it right now, when you see that and feel that, it just melts you. You absolutely are left speechless, and you kind of melt in its sweet embrace. And you realize that's all I really want, is what you realize. And so this infinite nature of light, once you taste it, it's so delicious that you simply want to completely give yourself to the light. And this, I would say, is one of the secrets of engaging with light. Giving yourself to the light. Don't think there is some special formula, special mantra, special secret, special technique, and that's what connects you to the light. No, it's your true, pure intention to connect with the light. And secondly, your willingness to give yourself to the light. When you give yourself to the light, you don't try to conceptualize it, limit it, nor do you bring any finite aspect of your being to restrict it. You completely let it be. And when you let it be, then you will start feeling cascades of light. And that encourages you to give yourself even more to the light. So this is a beautiful, virtuous cycle. You taste a little light, you give yourself to the light. You taste more light, you give yourself to the light even more, and so on, until light will expand you to infinity, right? So initially you perceive light as infinity, and I'm this small being, but when you allow light into you, light will take you all the way to the infinity that it is. This is the magic, this is the beauty, this is the grace, this is the blessing of light, to take you to your infinite nature, because that is who you truly are. Infinite being of light. And light will restore you. It will restore your recognition, your realization that that's what You truly are. And alongside that, you also see that reality is no longer what you initially might have thought about it as. It too is nothing but infinity. It too has the nature of light. So this is just, as you can imagine, quite spectacular. And this does not have to take a million years. Thankfully, as soon as your heart truly wants it, truly wants it, light is right there. The light is right there. So this is the incredibly, I think, good news, that the generosity of light, the grace of light is right there, is right there. Don't feel like it's you have to meditate for 25 years. The light is right there. Are you there? As soon as you show up, you find that the light is right there. So that's some of the big picture aspects of light. I'd like us to switch and actually go there. And I know we're we're already there, but let us now do more of a guided meditation, and we will go super deep, right? As deep as you can handle. That's how deep we'll go. So drop everything. Drop everything floating in your consciousness, anything floating from earlier in the day, earlier in the week, earlier in the lifetime. Drop everything so that you are clear and open. The more you're clear and open, and then you truly want, from the depths of your being, you want light, that's what shows up. Okay, so now let's close our eyes. And if you're already drinking light, you could tune me out. Okay, you don't have to listen to what I'm saying. Listen to the light. You can ignore me. But if it helps, you can follow along. So the first thing is, somewhere in the back of your mind, you may have an idea, a concept that I am sitting and meditating. I am sitting and I'm on this group call, and I'm sitting in my, let's say, living room, and this is what I look like. This is what I'm feeling right now. And there's a lot of implicit ideas about ourselves that we're bringing. This is the most important thing I want you to drop. Drop the idea that you are this person sitting in front of a screen, listening to some person called Suresh. Drop those ideas. Drop the idea that you are a certain person with a certain history, that you're inhabiting this body. Instead, let all that dissolve, evaporate, and instead, if you have to have any kind of concept, think of it as, I am a being of light. And my nature is light, and I'm calling upon light. So here we all are sitting together as beings of light, collectively calling upon light, cosmic light, transcendental light. With the purity of our intention, as we call upon this light. The light responds instantaneously. You may feel it most acutely on the top of your head because this particular spot is more ready to connect with infinity. So you may feel the light pouring down on you right there or anywhere else. Maybe you feel it in the heart. It is absolutely fine. But simply notice it, feel it wherever, however it is appearing. Let's take a few moments of silence to tune in to that inner feeling, that inner perception of light. Beautiful, beautiful. So let this light flood your being. However you're feeling it is fine. Now speak to the light directly from your heart and express your highest aspiration in your own words. Speak to the light, knowing that it is acutely aware of what is in the depths of your being. Speak in the language of your heart. What do you really, really yearn for? And whatever that is, now allow light to flood that aspect, that aspiration, that yearning. See it infused with light. Let the blessings of light turn that, whatever's in the depths of your being, your depths of your heart, let light use that to lift you, to awaken you to the highest truths. So, again, let's take a moment to absorb and receive in silence. Beautiful, beautiful. So, some of you already melting into the light. So, now as we bring the guided meditation portion to a close, remember that your connection with light is not going away. Stay connected with light as we shift gears. And we're going to talk a little bit more about how light changes every aspect of growth, so that it's fueling and accelerating our growth if we work with it. If we have time, of course, I'd love to hear what everybody is experiencing, but no matter what, I'm sure it's touching you in unique and special ways. Okay. So in my book, I talk more about this. So here we're going to be necessarily a little bit more brief. But in my book, Just Be, I talk about 3 phases of growth. And the 3 phases of growth are transcendence, integration, and embodiment. So let's take a look at each one of these and what is it and what happens when you bring light to it. So transcendence is the phase of growth where you are lifting your consciousness and directly tasting higher truths. So the average person is very engrossed in the more mundane physical reality, the activities, and the associated thoughts, emotions, etc. When you transcend, which is what happens when you meditate, typically, you start feeling something much more fine and physical. And this is really where you're starting to taste subtler planes of reality, as well as deeper aspects of your own being. So that's transcendence. And one way to look at transcendence from the light perspective is you are directly touching and tasting light. So no longer is light some nice idea, but when you transcend, you directly are experiencing light. So that's transcendence. When you move to the next phase, which is integration, what happens in integration is that typically when you transcend, some aspect of your being is tasting these higher truths, but there's some other aspect which is still left behind. It's not quite there. So we really want our entire being to be at this higher state of consciousness. So integration is the process where we are bringing light to these aspects of our being which are still in the shadows. In other words, we are bringing more light into our being, and we're transforming and transmuting every aspect of our being, rather than just being like part of us is up here and part of us is down here. So that's integration. And then the embodiment aspect is where you have transcended and integrated to quite a degree. So now you are actually a being of light, sharing light, living as a being of light, radiating light to the collective, to the people around you, so that everybody is uplifted by the light that you're bringing. So these are the 3 phases. And when you engage with light and you start consciously bringing light into each one of these things, what happens in transcendence? Transcendence can be pretty tough because we have very, demanding things going on. We have challenging things going on. So transcendence can always be this tug of war that, when I have a deep meditation, I really go deep, but then it doesn't happen so often. So it can be a struggle going up, coming down, going up, coming down, not quite able to consistently go to higher states of consciousness and not being able to sustain and stay there. So when we call upon light, when we bring light, when we engage with light, this journey of transcendence is boosted up in a big way. So we find that with great amount of ease, we are able to go to higher states. And with great amount of ease, we are able to stay in higher states. And that means it's no longer as much of a contrast. We're able to actually sustain a good amount of contact with higher consciousness by staying connected with the light. So in other words, transcendence becomes much more easier. That's what it feels like subjectively. Transcendence is a lot easier. If you look at integration, integration is generally involves a lot of friction and a lot of bumpiness. Experiences constantly telling us where we need to work on ourselves. And they are showing us what aspects of our being are still in the shadows. So usually it's not a lot of fun. But when we bring light into these more challenging aspects of life, it doesn't feel as bumpy. The emotions don't feel as erratic. There's not as much upheaval. So we are able to get growth, but with less, you could say, bumpiness, less friction, less pain, less suffering. And who wouldn't want that, right? We ideally want to grow a lot with minimum amount of suffering. So light does exactly that. By bringing light to these day-to-day experiences, we get the learning, we get the growing, we get the expansion, but we minimize the suffering. So that's light in the integration aspect. Finally, in the embodiment, the third phase, embodiment requires us to go to the highest level where we completely give light permission to use us as an instrument. In other words, we need to completely, not just to a great degree, but to fully allow light to function in our lives, in our being. So instead of allowing that to happen in its own slow pace, when we go there consciously, intentionally, and deliberately, and we ask light to take over every aspect of our life, then we become very powerful radiators of light. Because light, in fact, inherently wants to expand us to infinity. So when we cooperate with that dynamic, when we engage with light in the embodiment process, we go from being a small channel to more and more and more very quickly until we are swimming. We are completely infused with light and sharing and radiating light. So all of these aspects of the spiritual journey, transcendence, integration, embodiment, they are all significantly accelerated, significantly uplifted, and the journey of awakening, the journey of growth becomes much more imbued with higher qualities. The higher qualities bring with them a deep sense of satisfaction, contentment, fulfillment, and yes, even bliss. You can be feeling blissful even as you're going through your ordinary day-to-day activities. Even as you are still trying to get to that full awakening, you will start feeling this flow of light within you is having this very positive, very inspired quality it's bringing to your life. So these are the blessings of light. And this is how light can dramatically change what the spiritual journey looks like. So this is obviously, condensing a lot of ideas. But I want to give you a sense of that so that, number one, you realize that light has a lot to offer. Light has a lot to offer. And one of the big things I find with spiritual seekers is we have a tendency to get caught up in intellectual stuff, in philosophical stuff. Even if it's mystical stuff, we can get caught up with the technical aspects of this and that. And we can start thinking, well, if I really figure this out, that's going to help me in my spiritual journey. And I would like to encourage us to drop that tendency to over intellectualize all these spiritual things. Instead, when you work with light, you're constantly feeling, you're constantly experiencing light, and that is really what's going to make all the difference to your consciousness. Because the intellectual understanding, we're not going to take that anywhere with us. We drop it anyway when we leave this lifetime. So what we really need is this true realization. And that's what happens more and more when you connect with light, engage with light, and trust light. And I think it's another beautiful thing about light is you can work directly with light. You don't need anybody else. You can directly engage with light. Reason is light is a higher aspect of your own being. So you don't need to read 10 books on how to work with light. Okay. Let your heart, let your intuition guide you. Let that directly take you there. That is much more valuable than any kind of theoretical understanding of light. It's not terribly useful to have some big fancy understanding of light. So I do want to keep plenty of time for questions, but before we go to the discussion portion, I want to mention one more thing about light. And this is got to do with the fact that light is a vibration and we are vibrational beings. So there's always vibration being exchanged. And this is can be a positive influence, because if you resonate and entrain with light, either directly or through a being with whom you have a connection. If you feel an attunement or a connection, then you can entrain with light through that connection. So this is one more way where you can rapidly deepen your relationship with light. And I would always encourage everyone to go directly to the light. And really that it has everything you need. But if you feel some resonance with any being that you feel represents light, you can use that to your advantage. So that becomes of uplifting and reminding your own being about all these things we've been talking about. It reminds you something that you already know. And a being of light in your vicinity can serve as a reminder, and that can help us make that leap. So that's another thing to keep in mind with relationship to light. So maybe I'll say one more thing and then I'll open it up for questions. These are some of the higher aspects of light, which is really, I think, the most important. Some of us, I'm sure nobody here, but some of us may be dealing with some life challenges, maybe health issues, maybe some issues with people, relationships, maybe some issues with work, livelihood, material resources, money, all these things we bump into in our ordinary life. And sometimes these can become so tough, so challenging that they end up taking all our energy, all our mental energy, emotional energy, psychic energy is all poured into some issue that we're wrestling with. Now, guess what? You can definitely use light to help you with your life situations. And in fact, I would say that's a great way to take any life situation and turn it into a spiritual accelerator. So instead of just dealing with a life situation and trying to resolve it at that same level, which is what we tend to do, we try to think, we try to analyze, we try to figure it out, we come up with a solution, we try to implement the solution, but it's all on the level of finite being dealing with a finite problem. Instead, if you shift your consciousness and call upon light, now you bring that light to that situation. So if you're dealing with a health problem, send light to that, whatever the condition is, with maybe yourself or maybe somebody that you care about. Maybe it's an issue you're dealing with at work. Maybe you're worried about the planet. You're worried about all these difficulties that the planet is dealing with, maybe the climate crisis, maybe the wars, maybe the famines. You can send light. All the situations you can think of, maybe a trauma from 20 years back that is still bothering you, you can send light. The more you send light, the more it's going to loosen up that situation, which is kind of locked into place and become very tight. And you can keep banging your head on it and it doesn't make any difference. It'll loosen it up. And when it loosens it up, space is created. Space is created, and this space is the key to diffusing that situation. When you diffuse that situation, you keep bringing light, it will actually transform that situation more in accordance with the higher truth. Okay. I'm not saying that it's going to turn out exactly the way you want it, but it's going to turn it into something much more beautiful than you can imagine. And isn't that what we want anyway? Because we really don't know what may be the ideal resolution. So we allow the resolution to be in the hands of light. We let it take charge. And here again, we step out of the way. And this whole situation, which was so challenging, is now going to turn into a blessing because it's going to help you shift your consciousness, and it's going to help other people who are involved also expand their consciousness. So keep that in mind. It's light is going to help you awaken, but light's also going to help you deal with difficult life situations. So my suggestion is engage with light in every aspect of your being, right? Even if there's nothing going on, always be engaged with light, swimming in the light, always. Whether there's a situation or not, whether you're awake or sleeping, when you go to sleep, don't just go to sleep. Turn on the light inside. Turn on the inner light and go to sleep so that your dreams are all in the light. And then when you're in deep sleep, you're in the light. Then you wake up the next morning, you're in the light. So you're always in the light, right? Try that, okay? And I'm going to suggest that you're going to really love it. But the bottom line is for each one of us to actually engage and play with this light and see how beautifully everything changes. All right. So I want to keep good amount of time for questions. So I'll stop there.
Siddharth has raised his hand. Siddharth, you can, if you would like to ask, open your mic and ask, please.
Yeah, thank you, Vasu ji and Vani ji, for putting this together, and thank you, Suresh ji. It was a beautiful meditation. Um, am I audible to the?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Oh, just one small observation from, or rather, experience from the meditation, which also I felt many times I have practiced air, which is in just be, which is especially when we after we do the when there is this awareness on the top of the head. Uh, it starts feeling like that part gets really sensitive, and there's a lot of pressure building there, but not the regular pressure of like the muscular tension or pressure, but some sort of a tender thing opening up, but also not so blissful, so to say. But of course, so I was not really focused. But today, when you mentioned the head, top of head again, it really resonated. So if you could just share a little more about that, yeah, thank you.
Sure. Sure. Yes. So, one of the many things about the spiritual journey is we read about these great yogis and filled with bliss. And as we get a little deeper into the spiritual path, we feel like, where is this bliss? It seems like even to take your specific, what you brought up, when there's more and more energy and light flowing into the crown, we can start feeling intensity as this increased light is flowing into our being. And that increased intensity can be blissful or maybe not. And we might say, why not? Well, what happens is, for a long time, we have been used to a certain amount of influx of energy and light. And if that is cranked up, we may not be quite ready for that higher flow, the higher influx. So temporarily, what might happen is we may feel that pressure in intensity, but not so much as something enjoyable. It may feel more. Um, it may feel more like not so. It may feel like slightly painful even sometimes.
Yeah,
So the key is we want to therefore give the body and the energy system time to adapt to the higher levels of light and energy, and it is only reasonable to have some adaptation process which will take time. So allow that, and as you allow it, it will indeed feel more comfortable, more natural, and even blissful.
right. Just a small follow-up. Does physical purification, or like being more healthy physically, energetically, have a part to do with being able to take on this new pressure? Yeah.
Yes. So, our being is got all these aspects to us. There's the physicality, there's the energetic quality, and there's the light quality. And these are all connected. And because they're all connected, if your light body receives more light, it is actually going to pass that along to the energy body as more energy. It's going to pass it along to the physical body as well. And all these bodies need to actually be ready for greater influx of light. And what that boils down to is, if any one of these is not clear, not pure, and doesn't have the capacity, then it becomes the bottleneck. So
Right.
if the physical body or the energy body is not quite, you will feel symptoms there. Wherever the choke point is, wherever it's getting narrow, it's going to feel pressure there. So to answer your question, we want to keep the physical body as clean right?
Right.
As clean and as pure, and so also with everything else. So yeah, it helps. Definitely helps.
Lakshmi Narasimhan, would you have to unmute and speak? Okay.
Hello, namaste. My question may be very at a very base level. I'm a new person, so I may be very base level. I was just trying to understand, should there be any color attributed to this light that we are talking about? Means, is it attributed? And the second question is, you said the light can be sent to other people. So when we are trying to send light to other people, will they be able to receive it, or do they have to have some qualifications to receive it?
Okay.
These are the questions I would like to
Okay.
know.
Okay. Yeah. No, those are great questions. We are all at the same basic level here. So, okay. So color aspect. So as we engage with light, we are naturally going to perceive light in our own way, and that includes colors. But
Okay.
we don't have to try to visualize it in any particular color. We don't have
Okay.
to say, oh, I'm going to visualize violet light or golden light or anything.
Okay.
In fact, ultimately, light, I see it as is clear light. It's beyond all colors. All the colors are included in this clear light of infinity. So we don't have to try to make it any color. Let it be whatever color it makes itself as it reveals itself to you. And chances are that will change with time. Let it be whatever it is. Okay. Let it be whatever it is. None of it is wrong. Honor whatever it shows up as. So that's the color aspect. In terms of your second question about sending light, um, firstly, we don't have to concern ourselves too much about the other person. We can send light. They don't need to have any special qualifications. And the most important qualification they already have, which is their higher aspect is also light. So they're already qualified, so to speak. So we can send light without any sense of tentativeness or reluctance or hesitation. Everybody is eligible, okay? And they will receive the light in their own way. So we don't want to send light today and call them up tomorrow and say, hey, did this heal your migraine headache? Don't uh, anything or try to force it down any particular path. Let the light do its thing in its own way. Okay, so we don't want to be attached to specific outcomes, but don't also be surprised. Amazing things are just going to happen just like that. So that's the answer. Send light unhesitatingly. And in fact, I would encourage, a lot of us are probably going to send light to somebody dear to us who we care about and who may be suffering. And that's fantastic, definitely. But I would encourage you to also send light to somebody you don't even know. Send light to strangers. Send light to people who you don't even know whether they need it or not. Just send light everywhere. Okay. And so this is the beauty of light. It's universal. It's going to bring great benefits to the recipient, and it's going to bring great benefits to the sender, to you. So have fun. Send light as much as you can.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Ramesh, Ramesh Daswani, would you like to unmute and ask?
Yeah, there is a question on what you mentioned just now, that energy body, that should be pure. So when you are talking about energy body, are you referring to the chakras?
Okay. Yeah. So there is a lot of information out there on all the different layers of the of the energy anatomy. I like to keep it very simple. So yes, the chakras are traditionally part of the subtle energy anatomy. So that is the energy body I'm talking about. Um, but I would like to keep it actually fairly open-ended so that we are not getting too concerned with specifics. Just think of yourself, your inner being, as made up of many, many layers. And we don't even need to give names to these layers. We don't need to worry about which layer is doing what. We simply need to purify and upgrade everything. But what I said earlier, make sure you're not translating that into that you have to purify everything physically and energetically before anything good is going to happen. No, you can receive light no matter how your system is currently set up. Okay, no matter where you're at physically and energetically. Start where you are, and the light itself will also help you purify everything. Okay.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Thank you.
Mhm.
So I felt like I didn't perceive any light as such, but yes, I felt like a heaviness first, and then sort of vibration in the body. And finally, when I opened my eyes, it was like a calming experience. So exactly what is this light? Are we supposed to really perceive it as a light when we close our eyes, or
Mhm.
what is that? Or
Okay.
I'm like a bit confused on that.
Okay. Yeah. That's a common question, because we when light is spoken of, we are generally assuming that I'm going to visually perceive light in my inner vision. And yes, of course, it can happen that you perceive inner light, but in fact, there may be at some point, as I mentioned, it may not be visual. You may feel it in different ways. You may feel it as sensations. You may feel it as calming. You may feel it as joy. You may hear it as cosmic sound. So, literally, there is innumerable ways, and obviously combinations of these things. All of these leave us feeling clearer, more uplifted, more inspired, and these are the hallmarks that light has touched us. We feel more enthusiastic about life. We feel more upbeat. We feel more positive. We feel more filled with hope. And occasionally, you might have an experience that fills you with so much joy for no reason. That obviously is in the category of elevated, rapturous experience, which the reason I mention it is it can be a pure feeling. And you might say, I felt so great, but I wasn't seeing any light. That's fine. That's perfectly fine. So light is infinite, and the ways in which it will reveal itself to us is also infinite, because every single one of us is so unique. And each one of us right now in this session may have felt it in different ways. And so I would encourage you to not compare yourself with anybody else or any book you might have read and think this is how it should be. It can be absolutely anything. But bottom line is you feel the shift of consciousness. And that's the critical piece.
Is this light the light of consciousness?
Okay,
Light
yeah.
of awareness.
That's right. So we may call this light as light of consciousness, light of awareness. These are all, yes, this is the same light, transcendental light, cosmic light. And my favorite, of course, is the light of infinity. And light of infinity, since you asked, is a very specific light frequency. So you can think of light as a band of frequencies, which are all amazing, but the purest and highest specifically is what I call the light of infinity. And so that's just the term I use. But yeah, light of awareness, light of consciousness, they're all referring to this same light. And in fact, I would generally say to everybody, if you come up with a question, let's say after this session about light, you know what you can do? Ask light. Ask light that I truly want to understand your nature better, and I truly want to raise my consciousness. And this is a question I have that I'd like to understand better. Ask light, and light has the best answers. Light has the best answers because this is what I've experienced. When it gives you the answer, it doesn't just give you a dry answer. With that answer, it gives you the vibration, and it'll leave you with tears of joy, because you realize, what can be a better answer than this, where you are not only given the insight, but you are given that powerful pulse that your essence instantly feels it, because you realize nothing else ever has felt like that. And when you feel that, you just you just want to have a time where you can sit and cry, because you feel so much joy that cannot be described, that cannot be contained, that is incomparable to everything else we have experienced. There's absolutely no comparison. So you realize, if you only get this and nothing else in life works out, it's still okay. If you just get light, it's so powerful and so good, it will far more than compensate anything else that's going on.
One more question. How the light is transferred to other person from us?
Well, we don't particularly have to be concerned about the mechanics of that, because that's part of the nature of light. The fact that we are all interconnected at a very deep level. So just intentionality, it activates this transference of light. So, and of course, you can feel it and experience it and know it intuitively. But as far as detailed mechanics go, it is truly magical. Who knows how it works? I feel I don't know anything really truly about light. Who knows? It's just beyond imagination. But it is real. That's all we need to know.
I think one of the things that I'm religiously doing is all about the pyramid of light, which moves along with me. But certainly, I can see, in between there are times when I lost it. Then I need to make myself mindful, saying that, okay, hey, let me go ahead and have that pyramid with me, kind of thing. So again, that has really helped me a lot, focusing and asking a lot of questions to that particular light. But now, I want to get into a state of, when I say get into a state of, with that expectation building up, saying that, okay, hey, somehow I'm missing the connection to the light sometime, actually. So would like to understand what will be the, I should not say right or wrong way, what's the way to, take it forward?
Okay. Great. Yeah, so we can speak to this question and probably wrap it up after that. It is not a mind-based thing. So once you, imagine you go to a room, you turn on the lights, and then you sit down and let's say you read a book. Do you have to constantly go and turn on the light? No, you keep the light on, and then you may not even remember that the light is on, but you're getting the benefits of the light. So similarly, in this particular meditation that you are talking about, you turn on the light and your mind may not be aware of the light, but the light is there. And time to time, the mind may think, oh yeah, that's right. I am sitting under the light.
Yeah.
And time to time, it may lose that. The mind's connection with light coming on and off doesn't matter. We are not trying to appease the mind. But your being, always keep it open and receptive. It is more of a subtle awareness, which is beyond the mind. So keep that going. And that's really the point of that. So relax. If the mind thinks, oh, wait a minute, I forgot. Doesn't matter. The mind forgets all the time. Doesn't matter.